Hello everybody, Andrew Field here. I'm sorry that I haven't made a video in a while. I had spring break where I thought I'd be able to make a video, but I wanted to spend as much time as possible with my friends and family while I was on break. And yeah, so again, I apologize, so I just want to jump right into it. Starting off, Turkey's leader Erdogan told Putin that Turkey does not recognize the steps Russia took against Ukraine's national integrity. I wasn't exactly sure where Turkey was going to stand because in the past they have allied with Putin and Russia, so I thought that was an important thing to recognize. Um, Trump called Putin's actions on Ukraine savvy and genius. He did everything to hurt the international community and to bolster Putin while he was president, weakening NATO, you know, not wanting to push back on Russia ever, siding with Russia over our own intelligence community. I could go on. Um, so he's obviously not a person to listen to. And I wanted to point this out partially because he tried to walk this back, because apparently this was too much for him to say, even for him. So he's tried to, you know, call Putin a war criminal now and everything like that. But right before the war was going on, he called Putin a genius. So if you didn't know Trump was an idiot before, there's something to let you know. Um, some GOP members, including Ron Johnson and Tom Cotton, refused to condemn Trump's comments. The Republican Party not willing to, you know, say anything because they're all spineless. Where Senator Mitt Romney said it's almost treasonous of GOP members saying pro-Putin sentiments, and Liz Cheney was the same way. GOP members Taylor Marjorie Greene and Paul Gosar went to a white nationalist anti-Semitic event that got called out, and Romney called them morons. Connell said that Republicans largely support Biden's actions toward Russia, and that was a good thing for him to say. Russian airlines face a total airspace blockade from Europe and the United States, with most European countries imposing flight bans against Russia. The U.S. Embassy in Moscow urged American citizens to leave Russia. Putin, very early on in the conflict, a couple weeks back, ordered a nuclear deterrence, forces on high alert, which was a scary thing to see because it's a step toward war, or I should say nuclear war. Ukraine agreed to talks with Russia. That took place, but unfortunately not much progress was made. Zelensky asked to join the European Union. Ukraine said it took back control of Ukraine's second largest city of Kharkiv. This was also a while back, but Putin was wrong to believe the Ukrainian people would willingly accept Russian occupation. He thought it was going to be an easy conflict. The U.S.-European alliance would be divided, but unfortunately for him, the world has been very united against Russia. There has been almost no country that has supported his efforts. Everyone hates Putin in the world right now, which is a good thing, and Ukraine has not backed down. He thought, I'm sure, with all of those soldiers that he sent into Ukraine, that he would easily just carve up the territory until he would take it over, but thankfully for the world, that hasn't happened. And once he realized that, he started missile striking, sending missiles and bombs on Ukraine, trying to hurt them by bombing them instead of trying to invade. But his tactics to this point have not worked, and Ukraine has stayed strong as an independent, free democracy to this point. And there has been a lot of evidence that Putin has already committed war crimes a month into this conflict. Zelensky said Russia has targeted residential buildings, kindergartens, and even ambulances. So Putin should be tried as a war criminal, and I think should be able to be removed from office by the global community if these crimes that he has committed are proven true, which they will over time. I think that should be enough to kick someone out of power when they're not only doing that in their own country, but on another country. Early in the conflict, the world's largest aircraft, the Antonov AN-225, was destroyed. I haven't seen a number of the amount of Russians and Ukrainians that have passed away from this war, but the earliest numbers I've seen, and these are way off, but the latest numbers I saw was 352 civilians dead, including 14 children. Ukrainian soldiers who told the Russian warship to go F themselves. Reports say may be alive, which would be even more awesome. Their sacrifice that they made was really compelling, and if they were able to live to tell the tale, it would be even more so. SpaceX Starlink satellite internet service was activated in Ukraine, which seems like a good thing for Ukrainians to be able to still have internet access and post and be able to talk about what's going on there, along with probably the government, be able to have internet connected. Russian billionaires Mikhail Friedman and Oleg Deripaska called for Russia to end war in Ukraine, which, deserves a little bit of credit. It doesn't deserve much because it was only after all these economic sanctions that were put against Russia. So they didn't care about Putin's war until it costed them money. But it is still brave with how much of a crazy person Putin is. They're probably putting their lives on the line still. So it is still a bit noble. Also, Anonymous, the powerful group of hackers, declared cyber war against Russia. They have done a lot so far. I haven't seen too much lately. I haven't looked too much into what they've been doing lately, but what they've done so far is really amazing. For one, they hacked Russian state television to broadcast the truth about the Ukrainian invasion. They took down the Russian government website. So really great stuff. I saw the NASCAR Hall of Fame owner Richard Childress offered to donate 1 million rounds of ammo to Ukraine, which is pretty cool. Ukrainian forces destroyed 56 tanks and killed a general near Kiev. Apparently, Russia has tried many different tactics to try and assassinate Ukrainian's leader Zelensky, but all of them have failed so far due to the high efficiency and high bravery from the Ukrainian soldiers and Ukrainian people that have saved him from those attempts. There was also big news with BP exiting a partnership with state-owned Russian oil firm Rosneft, and apparently BP had a 19.75% stake in the company, which was great. Also, Norwegian energy firm Equinor to exit Russia over the invasion of Ukraine. Russia's economy is going to be absolutely devastated from all of these economic sanctions in the near term and in the long term. And I believe in the long term it's going to affect Russia even worse. So we'll have to see how bad the Russian economy gets hit over time, because obviously if the Russian economy gets absolutely battered, that's going to be more incentive for the Russian people to speak their mind, along with the Russian oligarchs who are very powerful in Russia. Switzerland, who normally remains neutral along with Sweden, also helped in the efforts to stop Russia. Switzerland froze Russian assets and adopted sanctions. The EU imposed on Russia. Sweden sent 5,000 anti-tank missiles to Ukraine. The United States has sent military equipment to Ukraine as well. Canada sent $25 million worth of defense military equipment. Denmark donated 2,700 anti-tank weapons to Ukraine. U.S. Approved Stinger missiles to Ukraine, very powerful weaponry. 100,000 in Berlin protested the Ukrainian invasion. There was protests all over the world when this conflict began. Japan announced sanctions on Russian oligarchs' banks. U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland announced the launch of a task force to pursue corrupt Russian oligarchs and violators of Russian sanctions, which is a good thing to avoid those loopholes. And Putin did a very good job at uniting the world against Russia. You can see it with the symbolism, with a lot of countries posting like the blue and green, blue and yellow, the colors of the Ukrainian flag. Very powerful message. They posted it on buildings, obviously on social media, just getting the word out there that countries around the world support Ukraine. It's a very great thing, but action speaks louder than words, and right now Ukraine is fighting Russia alone. So that's the unfortunate part. Belarus I don't think they've directly helped fight Ukraine at this point, but they've definitely helped Russia in fighting Ukraine, so I think they need to be dealt with as well. And they're a disgusting country, Belarus. That country that allowed Russian tanks and Russian military to invade Ukraine from their country and have been supporting Ukraine this entire time. So, fuck Belarus. Let's see. There were heavy shelling in Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city. There was a 40-mile long Russian military convoy near Kiev. Russia also struck a TV tower going after Ukraine's communications. Ukrainians from across Europe, I saw this story and it really was inspiring. Ukrainians from across all of Europe, left where they were at to return to fight in Ukraine. The mayor of Kherson said Ukrainian forces retreated from the city, making Kherson the first major city in Ukraine to fall to Russia. Russia's intelligence agency drafted plans for public executions in Ukraine after cities are captured. That report was released, and I don't doubt it. They probably want to send a message because I believe that Russia is very upset that they're a month into this conflict. I believe that, like I said, they thought the world was going to be divided and not able to support Ukraine and fight back against Russia as they have with the strong sanctions they've placed on Russia. And that Ukraine is standing and willing to fight Russia until their last, which is very noble and very courageous of all of them. I really feel for the people of Ukraine. I really wish we were fighting alongside them. I know I would. To be honest with you, I was feeling really inspired seeing some of these things the Ukrainian military and Zelensky were putting out in terms of fighting back with Russia. And, it's really inspired me. I've never liked Russia, but, seeing how this country, where you would say statistically there's no way that they could put up a fight against Russia, has very much done so to protect their country and their sovereignty. So if the U.S. were to go to war with Russia, I believe that I would definitely fight alongside Ukraine because I really feel for them right now. And if the U.S. were to directly get involved, I'd feel that I'd have to put down what I'm doing and fight alongside them because I just am really impressed with how much Ukraine is dealing with right now and been willing to deal with. They could have given up. They could have said, all right, we'll lose our democracy, but we don't want to fight Russia. We don't think we're going to win. We're just going to lay down our arms and let Russia take over. But you know what? They didn't. They said, no, we stopped those independent regions that you called independent that were actually parts of Ukraine. We'll let that go. But when you directly attack Ukraine and think that you're going to invade our country, we're not going to stand for it. So I can't say it enough how amazed I am at their bravery. It's just, wow. know, I would be surprised if all of America could stand up and do what they're doing in Ukraine right now. Yeah. Let's see. Ukraine and Russia agreed to temporary ceasefires in some areas to allow civilian evacuations, but Russia kind of backed out of those and started shooting anyway because they're Russia. Russia shot at a Ukrainian nuclear power plant, which caused it to be on fire. I think the situation with the nuclear power plant was handled. I didn't see a whole lot with that. I think that area is under Russian control, where Chernobyl was, but yeah, pretty sure. NATO rejected Ukraine's request to no-fly zones, and I believe the US and NATO are cowards for that. That's not even declaring war on Russia. That's just saying that Russia can't bombard and destroy most of Ukraine while they're fighting them. So I think the US and NATO are cowards for not obliging that. The US banned imports of Russian oil. A month from ago today, the Russian ruble plunged 30% against the dollar. And there was reports that some Russian soldiers dealing with low morale and food shortages have surrendered or sabotaged their own vehicles to stop fighting. So that was pretty crazy. 411 people have been detained so far at Russia. Also, those reports are pretty old, so I assume it's more than that. It's pretty brave of the Russian people to do that. The UN General Assembly voted to condemn Russia, which is like formality, okay. Pentagon rejected the announcement from Poland that it'd give the US MiG-29 fighter jets for Ukraine. And I agree with Representatives Adam Kinzinger and Ted Lieu, who I love, who said that the US should reverse course on this because it's like, really? You could give them military equipment, but fighter jets is too far when they're fighting Russia? It's kind of a sad state of affairs with that. I think it's very obvious we should be giving them jets and tanks and anything they need, and we're not directly getting involved, but we're sending them the equipment that they need. So I don't think that's going too far. The U.S. House passed a funding bill which included $14 billion in aid to Ukraine. Goldman Sachs exited Russia. France impounded a super yacht owned by a Russian oil firm chief executive officer, Igor Sechin, so some stupid oligarch with a bunch of money. It was part of the EU sanctions against Russian oligarchs, so that was good news. Germany announced a dramatic hike in military spending. Zelensky gave a speech to European Parliament, which was met with a standing ovation. It caused the EU translator on English language to get emotional. Polish diplomat said that Ukraine was not the last item on Mr. Putin's menu, which I totally agree with that, because Putin, I think in one of his speeches, said he wanted to resurrect the Soviet Union, meaning that he's obviously not going to go after just Ukraine. He's just focused on Ukraine right now, but I believe that he will target another country, especially if he was able to take over Ukraine. Zelensky afterwards spoke to U.S. Congress, and Ukrainian government raised over $10 million in cryptocurrency donations. Ukraine sent out a message to Tim Cook to have Apple block the App Store in Russia. Apple actually did more, and they stopped selling products in Russia, which was a very big deal. Apple to just say, we're not selling you anything. We're not selling you computers, no phones, no tablets, nothing. You get nothing, Russia. So I love the move. FIFA originally said that they were going to allow Russia to play as like without a team or flag or anthem, but they actually took it a step further, which I appreciate, to suspend Russia from the until further notice. So they're not able to play in the World Cup, and they're banned from international events. There's now over 1 million Ukrainian refugees. They are being welcomed across Europe. Finnish political parties gathered to discuss joining NATO. Uh, Georgia and Moldova joined Ukraine asking for EU membership. So more countries are wanting to join the international community with this. The International Criminal Court launched a probe into possible war crimes in Ukraine. The U.S. admitted that Russia committed war crimes in Ukraine, which was a big deal. The U.S. and other world powers tapped oil reserves to ease gasoline prices. I think they helped a little bit, but gas is still high. Over 100 diplomats walked out on a speech by Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov during Human Rights Council session. Russia tried to say U.S. weapons sent to Ukraine are targets. It's really stupid. Then the U.S. said they will accept 100,000 refugees fleeing Ukraine, which I thought was a really good move. Biden held emergency talks in Europe, where he called Putin strong names such as a dictator and butcher. He reinforced NATO allies, where he went to visit in Europe. And Lviv, a western Ukrainian city, was hit by explosions while Biden was speaking in Poland. Biden spoke to American troops in Poland and with Ukrainian refugees. One lady whose son stayed in to fight Russia said, "We Ukrainian mothers are ready to strangle Putin with our bare hands." So you can see the devotion and the passion that Ukrainians have right now to defend their country and the anger toward the Russian government. If I were Ukraine, I'd be angry with the Russian people as well, because there are a couple hundred people that have been detained protesting, but for the most part, I mean, what do Russian citizens, have to say for themselves? I mean, I know that he's a dictator. They don't have a democracy, and they have state-owned television, so it may be hard to get the truth, but at the end of the day, they've allowed Putin to stay in power for decades. So I blame the Russian people as well for this. Biden said in a speech the U.S. would retaliate Russia for chemical weapons for use in Ukraine. And he said a very powerful statement at the end of his speech saying, "This man cannot remain in power," about Putin. The White House tried to walk back the statements a little bit, which I think is ridiculous. But I think it was a good statement to make because it's true. The longer Putin stays in power, the worse the world is, with more and more conflict and the possibility of World War. Although some experts have said World War III has already begun. It's just that we have attacked economically versus militarily the rest of the world besides Russia and Ukraine, which may be true, but I wouldn't call it World War III unless another country got involved directly. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, aka the main Florida idiot out of multiple people, pressured students to remove their masks and said it was COVID theater. If you can find the video, it's pretty disgusting. And along with disgusting is the whole Republican Party, because apparently that guy, the guy who's been like anti-COVID the whole time, Governor Ron DeSantis, along with Trump, are going to be the main nominees in 2024. So I don't know who the Democrats are going to be running with 2024, but I know for a fact that they're not going to be as bad as Trump and DeSantis, so we'll have to see with that. The January 6th committee said Trump and his associates engaged in criminal conspiracy to defraud the United States in efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Trump's advisor, John Eastman's emails have evidence of at least 3 crimes he committed, which was very good to hear. Hopefully we'll get to see Trump in handcuffs pretty soon. Probably not very soon, because they're going through, the January 6th committee is still doing its research, collecting evidence and things like that, so it'd probably be a while, but I'd love to see Trump stand up to the podium and just speak absolutely terrible and probably self-incriminate himself while speaking. But either way, he should end up in handcuffs. Biden nominated Ketanji Brown Jackson to be Supreme Court Justice, and she would be the first black Supreme Court Justice ever, which is kind of insane for how long we've had Supreme Court Justices. She'd be the first one. Justice Clarence. Wait. Maybe she would be. Maybe I'm sorry. I think she would be the first black woman Supreme Court justice ever. Justice Clarence Thomas was hospitalized for an infection. He was released from the hospital after a week. U.S. inflation reached 7.9% in February, a 4-decade high, which is a lot. Biden gave a State of the Union address recently. Members of Congress wore colors or ribbons of Ukraine or had Ukrainian flags. American lawmakers, although it wasn't perfect, tried to show some unity. Biden spoke about COVID-19, the Ukraine-Russia war, infrastructure, healthcare, gun rights, police, immigration, and other issues. He specifically mentioned the Ukrainian ambassador to the U.S. and announced the U.S. would close its airspace to Russian airplanes. His administration would start fixing 65,000 miles of highway, 1,500 bridges, and would invest to have things made in America. He asked to pass an innovation bill and helped get agreement for a world minimum tax cut for corporations, which I think was a really good thing that I didn't hear a whole lot beforehand. He also announced the Justice Department would soon name chief prosecutor for pandemic fraud, so that was important. Talked about his Supreme Court nominee. North Korea launched an intercontinental ballistic missile and is working to develop weapons with multiple nuclear warheads, so we need to do more to stop them. And I just want to end off saying that Tom Brady, after announcing he was going to retire from the NFL a month later, decided, screw that, I don't want to spend time with my family. I'm going to go back to my, I believe, 23rd year in the NFL. So, pretty crazy stuff. I thank you all for watching. And yeah, I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.